Hey y'all, Eitso here. Today we're going to talk about the process that I use to create the flowers for Ikegami series. This process uses a monochrome CRT television to create an image with very vivid colors. The process is based on my loose understanding of trichromatic photography concepts, but instead of using a black and white camera, I'm using a black and white CRT television. The first step is for me to take a photo of a flower. Luckily I live in Montreal and there's flowers everywhere. For this demo, I'm going to use this little sidewalk garden that's around the corner from my apartment. Once I've found a photo I like, it's time to open it up in the Photoshop. I'll now save versions of it isolating just the red, green, and blue channels. These three images plus my original are now ready to run through my glitch process. Now let's take a look at my signal chain. From the computer, I'm running the signal into a glitch machine. For this video, I'll be using the format of Firefly. From the Firefly, I'm sending one output to a preview screen so I can watch the glitching, with the other output going over to the monochrome television, which I've got my trusty camera aimed at. The camera I'm using is a Panasonic Lumix. You can use pretty much any camera that'll let you have manual control, since you'll want the focus to remain consistent and the shutter speed to be compatible with your particular CRT's refresh rate. The Lumix lets me run an HDMI cable out to a larger preview screen, which lets me see the black and white version of the glitch while I'm actually dialing them in. And the large screen's just easier for me to see in my studio than the tiny camera screen that's at the other end of the room. My Lumix also has remote operation software so that I can press a shutter button from my phone. This is a real lifesaver, but it's by no means necessary to this process. Now that this is all set up, I can start to dial in an interesting glitch. This is a really nerve-wracking part of the process because in spite of all these preview screens, I still have very little idea of what the actual finished image is going to look like. So to get around flying blind, I usually have to capture many different glitches for the same base image. I find that I usually do between 20 or 30 to get one interesting result. As you can see, I start by glitching the full spectrum image. This is mostly to try to get an idea of how the glitch is going to work with the overall image. Remember though, the final output for this stage will be black and white, so the color preview screen is really just for my enjoyment. You'll see later that this doesn't really reflect the final image. Once I like the glitch I've got dialed in, I'll snap a picture of it. Then I'll bring up the red layer, verify that the glitch still looks good, then snap the picture. I'll repeat this for the green and blue channels as well. And then I'll snap a picture no signal just to tell myself later that the previous 4 images are one glitch. This is mostly just to keep things from getting confusing later. Once I capture those images, I'll dial in a new glitch and repeat the process. Now that I've got all of those photos snapped, it's time to open things up in Photoshop. I'll start by creating one Photoshop file with the 4 images as their own layers. When bringing in the images, I make sure to name the layers appropriately, just to keep it from getting confusing. Then I crop it so that nobody has to see what's around my TV. Now let's hide the full color spectrum layer since I really don't need it. I'll select the red layer, open up the color curves tool, and I'll go into the green and blue channels to remove them. This will make the layer red. I'll repeat this process for the blue and green channels. Next, I'll go into the blend mode for each layer, leaving the opacity to 100 and setting the blend mode to linear dodge. This creates an additive blend for these 3 layers, which should restore full color to the image. Now at this point, you're actually going to be able to see how this process shows the glitches you're doing. Sometimes it's very far away from what the previous screens had. Now there's a lot of room to play with this process in Photoshop. I've had some interesting results by mixing which layer I set to red, green, or blue. Different opacities get slightly different results too. And once these steps have been completed for all the glitches, I end up with multiple results. And then I have to kind of go through each one to decide which ones I actually like. In a group of 20 or 30 glitches for the same image, you'll end up with a pretty wide range of variety. So self-curation becomes a really essential and time-consuming step in this process. Thanks for watching.